Hello, welcome back to Raising Arrows Mama. My name is Heather, Mama28, and I am sharing all things about our Charlotte Mason inspired homeschool. So today I thought I would jump in and show you a little bit about what we use for citizenship the Charlotte Mason way. If you saw my previous video going through the knowledge of man subjects, citizenship, morals and ethics and economics is kind of what came up next. And with that comes a study in a couple of things that are very specific to Charlotte Mason that are very different from what you might think of as citizenship. Now, let me give you a little background. In public school, I was public school educated, and then also I went to college to become a public school teacher, and I learned how to educate in elementary school. And in general, that is a lot of what we call social studies in those early years before you get into history studies. And it would be, learning about your community helpers, your basic geography of your home, all of those kind of things go into your citizenship, being well-behaved. I remember in elementary school getting, you'd get an S or an S minus or an S plus based on your behavior. And that was your citizenship. Were you a good student? Were you cooperative and helpful and looking out for others? You get an S plus, more than satisfactory. Were you just not causing trouble? You got an S, you were satisfactory. Were you not the best of friends and not very helpful in your classroom community? Then you got an S minus. And that kind of was what it was. And that's kind of what it was when they trained us too. Citizenship really kind of focused on learning the Pledge of Allegiance, knowing the Star Spangled Banner, knowing those basic things about community helpers and our community in general. Charlotte Mason takes a very different role in that. And I don't know if it's because she's British, because it was the early 1900s when she was educating, or if she just saw that we are building up citizens of the world, not in a one world order kind of way, but in that we're all citizens of this world. And we don't know where our children are going to end up. And so we want to create good citizens. I'm really struggling with that word today. We want to create good citizens in general sense. So not necessarily a patriotism towards one specific country, though if you live in a specific country and you're proud of it, you probably should teach them some of those patriotic things. But that's not what she means here. And so Charlotte Mason citizenship, as I shared about in the last video, is kind of twofold. And she talks about citizenship with Plutarch, and then she talks about morals with her book Ourselves, and they kind of go together for the older grades. But for the younger grades, she says we train them in citizenship and morals through heroic tales. And I have one example, but it's innumerable. You could go anywhere with whatever morals and citizen type things you want your children to get, but you're going to get hero tales. And I love this 50 Famous Stories Retold. This is a Living Book Press printing. It's written by James Baldwin. It's an old story. What I love about it is they're very short, and these are perfect. I always read it with my year one students. And you can see, so here's Alexander, talking about Alexander the Great and his horse Bucephalus. The page is 1, 2. I think the longest story in here is maybe 3 or 4 pages long. And my kids still remember. They remember, why can't I think of his name with the sword? Damocles. They remember Damocles because of this book right here. And a lot of other little stories that some are ones that we just all know these days because we've heard it, by the way. Or some of them are a little bit more maybe British specific, and some are a little bit more out there. You may have not heard, but they are short stories that kind of focus on that heroic nature of putting others first, the kind of things that we deem heroic. Other things that you could use to do hero tales, I think Narnia would be great. Personally, we don't use Narnia in our home. That's my husband's decision, not mine, but that would be a great if you allow it in your home. There's a lot of different books where you have heroes that are just going to show forth how to put others first and to be a helpful, useful, and beneficial part of a community. And there are just so many books that do that. Little House on the Prairie, I think, does a great job in certain aspects of that, in certain of the books when they are in community, and different things. So you'll find those hero tales in a plethora of books. You have to choose what it is that you need. Little Duke is another great favorite that you'll see in Charlotte Mason circles. You might want to pass it off, but it really is a great story. Understood Betsy, I think, does a great job. And all of those things kind of show these hero tales, and they may not be knight in shining armor hero. George and the Dragon is great, but it may not be what you want for your family. So you kind of have to pick and choose what works for you. I think this is a great starting point. There's also Golden Stories or something like that, which is another one that James Baldwin has a couple. And so just look around for hero tales that are going to inspire your young children to do better, to be better, and to look to put others first. Obviously, you should start with the Bible, because that was the very first video. That is a great place to start. But then to supplement. Then we get into 4th grade and above. And in 4th grade and above, we go into Plutarch. Who is Plutarch? I don't know. I do know a little. He is a biographer from a really long time ago. Biographer of olden famous people from Roman and Greek history. And he wrote all of these, and there's multiple translations. I don't know the nuances of all that. If you're looking for a much more specific description of Plutarch and how to study Plutarch and how to be just like brilliant at Plutarch, go check out Beth Howard at Little World Wanderers. She has a Plutarch course for mothers, and I would love to take it, but I just do not have the time right now. But go check that out. It looks phenomenal. That said, if you don't have the time or money, yes, I don't right now have that. Another way is Ambleside Online. Ambleside Online has all of these for free. And so I'm going to show you some free options. I'm just going to tell you our tale with Plutarch. When my oldest got to 4th grade, we started with this, which I recommend everybody start with this. This is Plutarch Primer Publicula. I don't know how to say these names. I'm doing the best I can. It is an Anne White guide. You can get this for free on Ambleside Online's website. I purchased the book because it's just so much easier. What I love about it is Anne has all these great details at the beginning. And this isn't necessarily like every kid needs to start at Publicula, but every parent needs to. Some of the advice I've had with Plutarch is to do it in community as much as often as you can, because you want to have those discussions about what you've read. And this was a great introduction when I only had one student who was old enough to do Plutarch. And so I really recommend that. It helped me learn a little bit about Plutarch, but as you'll see, I had to change course for a while. But she has notes about the translation. She has notes about why we do Plutarch. She talks about, is Plutarch hard? All of these things, how Charlotte Mason tells you to choose Plutarch. And she goes in through that, making use of language. And then she gets into the nitty gritty. So for each Plutarch life, and like I said, you can find all of these for free on Ambleside Online's website. Okay, this is just all printed nicely in a little book that I got on Amazon, I believe. And so for each life, she's going to give you a little bit of background before you get in. You can choose whether or not you're going to read that with your child. Sometimes I have my child read it with me. Sometimes we just dive right in. It just really depends. Sometimes I read it and then I summarize for the kids before we dive in, kind of as a captain idea to get us thinking about what we're going to read. And then she has the lessons, and they're super easy. She has what you read, or she has an introduction for you, the parent, again, to get that captain idea. And she has some vocabulary. Sometimes the vocabulary you need to go over with your kids. More often than not, I don't. And then she has the readings. And so you read everything and you keep reading until it gives you either another reading, or you get to the end and it tells you the narration and discussion, and you just go through those questions with your kids. Usually I have my kids narrate first, then I do the discussions, but then as you can see, then we're on to lesson 2. Super easy, super quick and easy. Loved it. Worked really well with my oldest. It was a great introduction, helped us kind of understand what was going on. Was it incredibly hard to follow along? Yes, it was. Plutarch is not for the faint of heart, okay? It is hard. Doesn't mean it's bad, okay? Hard is not bad. It is just hard, and it takes some growing pains to get used to. And so I will tell you, with my oldest, we did that. And then I went to Ambleside Online because I was lazy and didn't want to, I wanted to I'd rather print it than buy it. I don't know. So I just printed them out and put them in a binder. And you can see here, I have the Triumph of Aemilius Paulus. I think I got these in the Facebook group, the picture. And then we went through and we did it this way. And I just had them printed out and we went through. We did Aemilius Paulus, we did Aristides. I don't know if we had another one. I think it was just those two. And then we did the Publicola, was the first year. And that was great. Did fine. It was hard to read and understand, but we got better towards the end. Then we added my next child. And when we added my next child, it was impossible. My next child is a little bit slower reader. She was struggling with all of those things. And adding her in at 4th grade probably wasn't wise now that I'm looking back, because she herself wasn't ready for it. But because of that, I still was trying to do all the things the right way, and not worrying about that aspect. You grow and mature as an educator. Anyways, I picked up Plutarch's Lives for Boys and Girls. This was W.H. Weston. This was another recommendation for Plutarch. This helped me so much, and I have used that until this year. I'm not gonna lie, we haven't always finished our Plutarch Lives. We get a lot of the way through. We don't always finish them. This made it so much more accessible for my kids. Because here you're using the Norse translation with some omissions. Here it is, they've used the Norse translations, I believe, and then they've translated it down even more for kids. But it is still not easy, but it's easier. And they're fairly long. So if you want an example, this is Aristides. He's 24 pages long, okay? I know, like 24 pages in 12 weeks. Come on, you can't do that. It takes a while because I was finding I needed to stop more often in order for my kids to be able to narrate, because otherwise it was just too many new things. They were learning battle terms. They were learning some map work along with it, trying to understand these ancient Greeks and Romans, and they were learning things about state. They were learning things about government. And so there was a lot of terms, a lot of new concepts. And so we had to narrate in smaller chunks, and it took us longer to do. This book, though, really did help with that struggling student. I added in a 3rd student, and we still use this. Worked out really well. Last year, I had 4 students, and it worked really well. I have no problems with it. Not really needing to change, other than I wanted to do a different person than what was in here, is really what came in. And so we are changed now. We have moved on. This was a great thing. This helped me really understand where to go and what I was looking for, and knew this is the goal. But when I was struggling, this helped me bridge the gap. So this year we are back in White Guide. And I think this is actually where Ambleside is right now. I don't know. They have one for every section. I just grabbed volume 1. I grabbed volume 1 and we're just going to work from there. Because there's a couple other people. I wanted Marcus Cato on this one, and then we're just going to keep going through it that way, and it is working really well. I do recommend you do the prep work as a teacher with it. It will help you as the teacher to understand what's going on. It will help you as the teacher to facilitate discussion, and it will help you as a teacher to point your children into certain areas, because you may, Anne says 8 paragraphs is great enough for you to read and then narrate. You know your children. Maybe you need to do 4, and you need to add an extra narration in there, as I did today. And so let me give you, this was a very short reading today. And so let me show you, we had an introduction. We're going to learn about Cato's sayings. Then I had some vocabulary. I didn't go over any of those with my kids, although I did flip back and tell them sententious, because I was like, ooh, I don't really know what that means. And then a few other things. I didn't go over the names because they have heard of Themistocles and Plato before. And Lysias, I could just add that in, that he was an ancient writer. I did read them the prologue, which is just saying that, okay, this is what we're going to read about. These are some of his sayings. This is where people use a famous orator. And then I read through some of his sayings, and then I stopped because there's part 2. They narrated. not amazing, because it was a weird chapter, and it was basically he had 3 big sayings, and then there was a little added on for each of them, but they got all, 2 of the 3 sayings. I threw in the third to help them remember that one as well. Then part 2, I read through this and then had them narrate, and they were able to do that fairly well. And then after that, we went through our discussion question. We chose not to do the creative one this time, but I have had them do the creative side before. And in this particular one, the creative one at the very beginning was to, if you were a neighbor viewing Cato, how would you describe him to your friends? And that helped get the conversation going. And so we have that, and it took 10, 15 minutes maybe. This was a shorter reading. Sometimes it does go the whole 15 minutes, but I don't think we've ever spent more than 15 minutes with this, which is a big, big step up, if we shall. It never takes more than 10 minutes, 15 at most, if it's a longer reading or a longer discussion. But it has helped us with that. And so we use Plutarch for our citizenship, because as you look at these different heroes, Plutarch, as I said in my previous video, he doesn't give us the moral. He doesn't say this person's good, this person's bad, this is what they did that was good, this is what they did that was bad. He gives very little commentary on it. This is just the history. This is what happened. This is what other people said about him. And he leaves it up to you. And so you as the reader and with your children in discussion can discuss, was this a good decision? You know, as we went through Julius Caesar, well, he was really good to his troops, and what was good about it? And why was it necessary for him to do that? And how did that affect him coming into power later? So many deep discussions that talk about citizenship, leadership, and your role in community come through these lives. And so that is allowing your children to formulate those ideas based on these examples that they're reading about, without you being, I think, exhorting is how she says it, without us over exhorting that you must be really good and you need to be kind and you need to put others first. Well, let's look at these here. What was good about it? What was bad? And help your children to formulate these things and to think through these actions and words that are being said and done, so that they can formulate truly what makes a good or wicked, or, you know, whatever quality you want to say for your citizenship. And then another portion of citizenship, and she calls it morals, is ourselves. And I do have a copy of it all together. Ourselves is her volume 4. So if you've seen Charlotte Mason's 6 volumes, volume 4 is ourselves, and she wrote it for children. I'm going to try to go fast because the baby needs to eat. But ourselves is wonderful. You can get lots of different things, again, free on Ambleside Online. The whole thing, whole shebang. I have a beautiful hardback living book press that is Mama's copy, and I love it, and it is wonderful. These are from Simply Charlotte Mason, and I got these for my kids for 2 reasons. One, their books are separate because it is 2 books in that one volume, but mostly I got it because it has these little notes on the side. It also has narrations. It has it broken down into readings, and it has all these things. It's annotated to help your child, and it helps me as well. Again, you could just give this to your children. A lot of people do. I've heard from many other homeschool moms, local homeschool moms, that it's better to do in community and to do together. So my oldest and I do it together by ourselves because she started it way before my other kids. We started in middle school. And then I'm starting it with my 6th and 8th grader this year for my second round through. My oldest, it gets pushed on the back burner too much. And so we are almost finished with this, which is why I have the second volume. And so I have both of them. You definitely want to get through the first one. I don't know if my oldest will get through the second one. Hopefully she will. That's the plan. She's only a sophomore. We got time. But anyways, I digress. Through this, you are going to travel with Charlotte into a fictitious world called Mansell. If you're familiar with John Bunyan in the Holy War, Mansell is the community. Anyways, Mansell is a community that she's saying it represents our actual souls. And she's talking about the various components that make up the community of our soul. What are the various components? And she puts it in terms of communities or state. And so Mansell is the country, and then you have all these different components. And so you have the Esquires. Let me go to this. You have the house of body, which is like the Esquires of the body. So hunger, thirst, restlessness and rest, chastity, and the five senses. Then you have the house of mind, which is ourselves, my Lord intellect, the demons of intellect, the Lord chief explorer, beauty sense, reason, imagination, desires. And then you get into the house of heart, and you have the different lords of heart. You have love and justice and self-ordering. And then you have vocation. And so you have these different parts. And these are like the people who rule man's soul, who are in charge of it. And they represent the different things that make up us and how we choose to live. And it is written very much in that story format, but not so much that it's talking down to them. I hope that makes sense. I will say that my kids struggle with a lot of these concepts and some of the ways that she writes, because it is a growing, you learn Charlotte Mason speak as the more you read her. But they struggle with some of the concepts because they are deeper. My oldest and I last week, because we read on Fridays, we were talking about truth and justice and word. And we talked about a new term to me, calumny, which is speaking injurious words about other people. And in the chapter, Charlotte Mason uses a famous painting by Botticelli called Calumny, and it talks about how we can be tempted away by the words and thoughts of these things that aren't always so ugly. Because in the painting you have the human, and then he's being pulled away by these beautiful demons of envy and selfishness, and what were the others? Can't remember all of them, but all those different demons that kind of pull us apart, of jealousy, envy, vain, looking for vainglory. It's all these things. And we think, oh, they're going to be so bad and I'll notice it right away. None of us notice, very few of us notice right away that we're falling into those traps, to those demons. We're following into those sins because they come in pretty packages. Like, we don't realize that that's how it is. And the painting illustrates it. So we looked it up, and that was great. Illustration of it. Not every chapter has that, but she goes through and helps us understand that we can have truth and justice in our words, but only as much as we are truthful. Because sometimes our words, we say things like, oh, I'm so glad you got that job. I'm sure it will be really exhausting. I don't know. I'm making that up, but you say things that aren't exactly truthful. They're not 100% truth. And in so doing, we not only hurt others, but we hurt ourselves. And so that is her whole point, is trying to learn how to better have self-knowledge of yourself and to be a better citizen and part of the community, and to just love well. And she has lots and lots of scripture throughout, as Charlotte Mason has in all of her works. She has lots of stories and examples that she shares, and those are wonderful. And the second volume is Self-Direction, and I'll give you those titles. So in here, we continue going. So we have the conscience in the house of the body, and so you have all these different things. So you go through temperance, chastity, fortitude, prudence, and then conscience in the house of the mind. So conscience, poetry, novels, history, philosophy, theology, nature, science, art, sociology, self-knowledge, and then you go through the will, which, if you don't know, Charlotte Mason has a very different concept of being willful or willfulness. And then she finishes with the soul, capacities of the soul, disabilities of the soul, and knowledge of God, prayer, thanksgiving, praise, and faith in God. And so she uses these to help our children think through those morals, much like Plutarch, without being without being the showman and just trying to force it down our kids that this is the way you need to be, but helping them to come to that understanding on their own through good examples, through bad examples, through understanding the world around them a little bit better and coming up with those concepts and thinking it through on their own, because we always learn things better once we do it ourselves. And so helping them and directing them along the way will be that. And like I said, this particular volume I just like because it tells you what you're going to do. You have a little intro for the reading. You have little notes along the sides. You also, at the end, will have points to direct. And then if it has to break it into multiple readings, it has a little section right here to divide it. And so that's why I buy these particular copies for my kids. Like I said, you can find this online for free. Ambleside Online has all of Charlotte Mason's volumes. Also, all of the Plutarch's Lives by Anne White are all free on her thing on Ambleside Online. And so you can use these to teach your children Plutarch, and it can literally cost you nothing. It can to teach them citizenship and morals with no cost to you. But remember, both citizenship and morals all stem from a basic knowledge and love and desire to please the Lord. And so you have to go back to that very first universal knowledge of knowing God and putting him first and foremost in your home, and start with the Bible. So make sure that if you're not doing Bible, that you get your kids reading God's word each and every day. Get yourself reading God's word each and every day before we tackle on all these other concepts like citizenship and morals. So thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end, drop me a little scale symbol below. I think that means justice, right? It used to. Thank you again, and have a blessed day.